Let's do a quick preview of Full Gear on Saturday night. I'm so used to saying Sunday night for these pay-per-views. But tomorrow night, it is the Royal Farm Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, headlined. Well, let's go their way. Which is closing this? Because Jericho did an interview with Sports Illustrated, and he's kind of said that, he's fine if he doesn't go on last.
You know what? I certainly would have expected Jericho and Cody, considering the stakes involved being the championship match and also the stipulation with Cody saying he'll never challenge for the title again if he loses. And also considering crowd interest, I would have expected for sure that one to be the end. Somebody did bring up to my attention that Moxley and Omega is an unsanctioned lights out match, and that could be a difference maker. Obviously, Moxley and Omega will be a very heavily anticipated match on the night of too. So I could see either one.
And very difficult to follow those types of matches too.
Right. And you know what? If we are going to get perhaps a Chris Jericho heel win in that match, you might want to end with the double babyface lights out match in Moxley and Omega closing the show.
Yeah, I could certainly see them going that direction. But let's start, for the sake of it, with Jericho and Cody. I don't think it is time to take the title off Jericho, but man, Cody is, he was on that call today and was like really hitting it hard that I am giving my word I will never go for this title again. And I know you can do the, back when Conan lost his career in Mexico and the people just begged him to come back, and he came out of retirement. But I don't know if you want to have, it's really going to be a test here for AEW of, are we going to be completely hard and fast with our stipulations or find a workaround to it? It's kind of interesting. Like, it does lead you to, because you don't know their track record. If this was happening in WWE, I don't think people would be putting stock into a guarantee from the top babyface to the extent that we're looking at a clean slate here. And Cody winning this title would not shock me, as in our stipulations are going to absolutely matter. And we're not going to have our top babyface go out there and then we're going to find a way to get him back into the title picture. And it would be completely ludicrous to have Cody out of your title picture for long.
But I think it's because it is unproven that I think Cody and AEW are suggesting this stipulation so that they can prove that they can go through with wild stipulations like this. And I think, hearing more about the call and just knowing all of his responsibilities outside of being an active wrestler for Cody, I can see him, not wanting to take up one of these spots, or at least, taking a step back from being in the main event of every single show in order to focus more on, smaller feuds and also focusing on whatever production duties he has in the back. The guy is already the top babyface there. You can certainly argue that, I just don't think a loss hurts him. Even if he never challenges for a championship again, I don't think it hurts him that much. And I do think it's too soon for Chris Jericho to lose it. So I'm still going with Jericho.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what they go with here, because I think it would be a bad business decision to just purposely keep Cody away from your top prize. Like, this guy, there's no argument. This guy is, to me, the top babyface in this company. He, to me, is above Omega now. I think he's above Moxley. I think he is the clear number one babyface in this company. And unless you have a really elaborate story, which they very well may have, it'll be interesting what they do here. How do you feel the match will turn out, quality-wise?
I think the heat will be so good. These two don't have to even do a whole lot in order to just have an excellent match. And I think they will certainly do a lot more than not much. I think both of them will try to have the best match that they can. But it'll be a match that'll be carried by storytelling and incredible atmosphere, like we've seen from all of Cody's matches thus far. And, even many of Jericho's matches lately as well. I feel like Cody and the incredible atmosphere and Chris Jericho, they'll be able to make the most out of what both can do inside a ring.
How would you beat Cody if he's losing?
He definitely has to get screwed somehow. Do you do
He
the
needs to
MJF?
set up his next program to go with. MJF's the easy one.
I think it's too early for that too, but it's possible. That's always like, what better way?
I will go back to that Cody video though. If they were planting the seeds in that video where MJF is saying, I know how important that night is for Cody, and a superstar will be born that night. Those were his words in that video. Like, they have certainly planted the seed for the turn to happen on this night, and it all makes sense in the end. And it's the feud that detours Cody immediately after this.
I certainly expect some type of tease, even if they don't execute the turn. But I think a turn that big with MJF costing Cody this huge stipulation will probably get people talking a lot more than any sort of like free agent signing that might debut. So if their goal is to get people to talk, that might be the route that you go.
Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega, they're finally getting to the match. I expect this one to be as violent as they have probably presented. Like, they've really set the bar high for this one because they've done a lot of these styles of matches already in AEW short history. If they're going on last, I think that only exceeds the expectation level, and probably we're looking at 25 minutes or so.
The more I think about it, the more I do anticipate this match going on last, just given the style of the match. And, I think Jericho and Cody will be electric, but when you throw in weapons and ladders and blood, visually it's kind of tough to...
Probably glass. Yeah. Probably. I think you're going to see everything in this match. I think they want to shock people with certain elements of this match.
Yeah. And that might prove to end the show a little bit better than maybe the storytelling heavy Chris Jericho versus Cody. But you can expect this to be a CZW level Jon Moxley participating in a match against Kenny Omega, who hasn't really shown, hasn't done a ton of death matches, but we saw glimpses of it in the Joey Janela match on Dark, where, I mean, either way, we know Kenny Omega takes a lot of really crazy, pretty fucking ridiculous bumps. And, I wouldn't rule out balcony dives out of the question. I wouldn't rule anything out of the question. Creatively, you're going to get to see these two pretty much do anything that they want.
In terms of outcomes here, certainly one direction that you could go out of this is Jericho and Moxley. That's certainly one way you could go. I kind of see...
They released their rankings today, too.
Do you have them? Yeah.
I'll dig them up.
Okay. I think Moxley goes over here.
I think so, too. And if we go by the rankings, John, we can even tell you...
Wait, exactly. Do they have media voting on the rankings like UFC?
I don't think it's no, it's by record, of course. So these are the official AEW rankings that they've released. And we only get a top 5. And at number 5, John, coming in at a record overall of a singles record of 1-0-1. So they list the singles record, they list the trios record, and the overall record. So Moxley.
Why should the trios record matter in the singles rankings?
I don't know. I mean, The bigger question is why aren't tag matches listed in their own column either?
How many trios matches have there been in AEW? There's probably only been a handful.
Most of them haven't wrestled any, but anyway. So Moxley is at number 5 with an overall record of 1-1-1. This shit is all over the place because Kenny Omega is at number 4. He's at 2-2 in terms of singles, but his trios record is at 2-1. So his overall record is 5-4. So
oh my god, this is complicated.
These numbers are just kind of all over the place.
So they add the singles and trios records together.
Yeah, with tag matches, basically a win in any format is a win. Then we have Hangman Page with an overall record of 3-2. Oh, sorry, a singles record of 3-2 and an overall record of 4-4. He's at number 3. Pac is next at number 2 with a record of 3-0-1 and an overall record of 3-1-1. So I guess he's lost a tag match. And then Cody is at number 1 with a singles record of 3-0-1 and an overall record of 4-1-1. I'm trying to see what is weighed more, because if you just look at the singles records, yes, Cody would be number 1 and he gets the advantage because he has one more tag match win than Pac does. So The 1 and 2 makes sense.
By the rankings, that would make Adam Page and Pac probably the next challenger, wouldn't it?
You would think so.
Over Moxley or Omega, who are ranked lower.
You would think Pac might be the next challenger, but then you have a double heel situation with Pac and... Well, depending on who wins, right?
Depending, yes.
Yeah. So that's interesting. And then you have Kenny Omega at 2 and 2, and then Moxley at 1-0 and 1. I don't even know how Moxley is like number 5, because I'm sure there are people that are...
So he's never lost, but he's 5th.
But there are people on the roster that I feel must be more winning than 1-0 and 1. Like, anybody with more than one singles win would be ranked above Moxley, but I could.
Well, it's also
wrong.
Quality of win, maybe.
Really? Okay. I guess so. Like, wouldn't Darby Allin be? Has Darby Allin had more than one? Okay, whatever. Doesn't matter. These are kayfabe rankings anyway. Well,
I feel this is going to be a weekly segment on Rewind to SmackDown. John and Wai decode the rankings. They're going to be putting them out for all the divisions too.
Yes, that's right. So
Cody said he wants to have them out every Friday. So
somebody can go ahead and scrutinize them. I just don't have enough mental power. So
you know what AEW is going to do to counter? They're going to put out a show or a YouTube video, and Chris Harrington is going to break down the rankings.
That's exactly what I want. Yeah, the new WrestleNomics,
and that will silence every detractor.
True.
As really he puts down the formula.
You know, he really put over Chris Harrington on the call today.
Oh, yeah. Not just like all the data, but the fact that him and Christopher Daniels are working to get a lot of the international talent over and kind of stressing that in this political climate, getting international visas, that is not a cakewalk, which I don't doubt at all. Like we've seen that for many wrestling companies having that problem at the moment. So.
I do look forward to the day when we get like charts and graphs, you know, talking about like Cody's winning percentage and how he
could you imagine if they go public and then they have their like earnings reports and
that'd be nuts. But I'm just talking about the match, the records.
The records. Yeah. Let's go further down here. Well, let's talk about Hangman Page and Pac. They've been kind of teasing Hangman with an eventual turn and kind of going through a bit of a slump, although his ranking would not reflect that. So, this one has also been built up for a while between these two, and I guess it could be conceivable that whoever wins this match could be the next title opponent.
Right. Yeah, that's right. I think Page has really gained a whole lot of momentum since his title loss to Jericho. He's been doing wonderful as like a second man in these tag team matches, whether it be with Dustin or Kenny Omega. Cowboy shit is a catchphrase that is really getting over amongst the crowd. I sense more momentum behind him than even Pac. So is now the time to have him lose? At the same time, do you extinguish Pac's undefeated streak, which I think, has... You put him over Page and Omega heading into this, so might be might not make sense to have Pac lose all of a sudden. Whereas if you had Page lose, you can continue to springboard that pissed off potential heel character he might do. So
that's where I see them going. I think they've kept Pac protected to this extent, and I think they continue with that.
Yeah, and that would put him in line for a title shot, according to these records.
The Young Bucks against Santana and Ortiz. I think this is going to be a phenomenal match. Interesting to see where they place them because, in many ways, this feels like the significant tag match on the show, certainly much above the tag title match.
In terms of star power, certainly. Yeah, in terms of anticipation, you're not really going to beat the Bucks. And so, that said, though, I think where they place this match on the card will tell you a whole lot about, where they see... like how they book, because I feel if it was a WWE, they might. You know what? If it was WWE, this would be anywhere. But I think they'd
open the show with this.
Well, I mean, I could see them doing that on AEW because I sense that they would treat the title match with a bit more, prestige, and therefore I can see reason for putting SoCal Uncensored and Lucha Brothers and Private Party on towards the end and starting the show off hot with Bucks and Santana and Ortiz.
I like the idea of starting the show with Riho and Emi Sakura.
The women's title match.
Yeah. I think they could start off really hot, and I think it would be... You would avoid that potential issue of this coming in midway through the show, and it's kind of a break match for people that... some of the women's matches have been treated as, and I think coming out of the gate, I'm pretty optimistic about that match really delivering, especially in front of this crowd. So, yeah, it's interesting. You have a few options here of what you could do, put in the opener.
I think match placement would be very important for that one, because I think it stands the biggest chance of maybe losing the crowd without as much, I think, character attachment to Emi Sakura especially, but even to Riho.
Do you see Santana and Ortiz going over? This is their first major match. Do you think you establish them with a win where the Bucks have really kind of downplayed themselves in this division so far?
I think the answer would probably be yes. You know, given that this is their first match, they probably don't want to start them off with the loss. And I whether or not you think it's the right decision, I think the Bucks right now are bulletproof, and it seems like they are willing to lose to everybody to get them over.
Could you see a scenario where all of the Elite members lose on this show? Hangman, the Bucks, Cody, and Omega.
I mean, isn't that the story they've been telling? Like on previous shows? It's not one they've really emphasized, but especially with Cody.
There is the natural that they're teasing the match beyond, and I was just like throwing it out there that maybe that'll be the Thanksgiving Eve episode at the Sears Center is the match beyond, but that is kind of the unifying match to get the Elite all back, where they're all linked together through this slump that they're all collectively in, and that brings them all together for one common cause against the Inner Circle.
Potentially. Yeah, potentially. And then, maybe you do something with Paige at that point too. I don't know if you don't have to tell that story in order to get to that match beyond. It might add, but I feel like the results of the Elite on this particular show, doesn't necessarily all have to be negative in order for them to build to that match.
Riho, Emi Sakura. I think this is a real important match for the division, and they had a really good sequence at the end of that tag match, and this is the woman that trained Riho, so certainly these two, you would think that they should have some phenomenal chemistry, but this is an important match for both of them.
Certainly, yeah, for Emi Sakura. I mean, don't really know that much about her career, but from all accounts, she seems to be somewhat of a legend, I guess, in those circles. So this is her getting to wrestle on a major stage. So you would expect both of them to really bring their best. And I'm pretty sure everybody expects a Riho win. But the bigger question is whether or not this becomes an impressive showcase for both ladies.
SCU, Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky defending the tag titles against Pentagon Jr. and Rey Fénix and Private Party. Could you see a title change this quick, or just this is going to be your kind of wild tag match that's going to have just nonstop action and the tag titles stay with Kazarian and Sky this early?
It's honestly tough to see any type of title change right now, don't you think? Like with everybody being so fresh as champions?
Yeah, I mean, I think you would want to at least establish the titles a little bit beyond 10 days with Kazarian and Sky. So that would be where I lean here. But it's not out of the question that they just do something wild, and they could go anywhere here. You could go with like the underdogs, Private Party, who weren't even in the finals, and here they come back and win. You could do the story that one team pins the team that are not the champions, so they still have a reason for a rematch. Does Christopher Daniels come back and get involved with Pentagon and Fénix after the attack? There's a lot you could introduce in this match, but I think quality wise, I think that Private Party they very much are going to be judged upon who they are in the ring with, and I think that these four are going to bring the best out of Private Party.
I agree. Yeah. I think it'll be a pretty crazy spot fest type of match where you'll certainly see Rey Fénix be very impressive, Isaiah Cassidy be very impressive, and either Kaz or Scorpio Sky be really impressive as well. So I can see this one starting off the show as well.
SCU in their familiar role.
Yeah. I mean, they're excellent at it though. So, who do you think wins this one?
I'll go with Kazarian and Sky.
I will lean towards that as well, although if I think anybody else could win, it would be the Lucha Brothers. I don't know if I'd do Private Party right now. I feel like a bigger chase for them would be good.
And finally, we also have the kickoff, but Joey Janela, Shawn Spears, really just thrown together quickly. I think this really could have used a Tully Blanchard promo in place of the Brandon Cutler match on Wednesday to just set this one up a bit better.
I need to clarify, everybody. So the pliers were not being used to pull his tongue out. The pliers were used to open his mouth so that Spears and Blanchard could extinguish Janela's cigarette in his mouth.
Okay, sorry. I was just working all that out in my head. That's a lot of effort. So do pliers have to get involved here?
Or lit cigarettes?
Maybe they'll put out a cigarette in Joey Janela's something or other.
Or maybe Tully's getting a cigarette put out in his mouth.
Oh, wow. Yes,
Ooh.
that could be possible.
Yeah. I see Spears getting the win here. I think this will be another nice babyface showcase for Joey Janela, who really has earned the crowd's love lately. But I think Spears is in need of a big win on a pay-per-view, and I see this being it.
Sorry, you're going with Spears?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that Spears, you want to play on words here, reignite a bit after the Cody program, where he's kind of just fallen since then. So I'm all for Shawn Spears, especially with Tully Blanchard having a more prominent role. So yeah, that could be Spears going over there, and then B. Priestley and Britt Baker is on the buy-in pre-show, and
only one match on the buy.
I love that we got 8 matches here, 7 on the pay-per-view. When I read that thing in the Observer that they are reacting to fans thinking the show was too long last time, that they're shortening it, they want to be done by 11:30. Oh, music to my ears.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
So, could you see this feud continuing, or is this kind of the end of the road for this one?
Kind of weird to have this culminate on a buy-in, right?
I think you want to put something on the buy-in that you don't want to tell people this is a throwaway with our non-push talent. So I kind of get that thinking as well. There's no match on this card that, honestly, Spears and Janela could have been on the buy-in. Mm-hmm. That's probably the least promoted of all of these matches. I think it definitely is. Yeah. So I don't necessarily disagree with the idea that you put something not of extreme importance on the buy-in, but something with relative importance, which this has. Sure.
I mean, but I more so see this as a building of to their next chapter. I think there's so many places with this particular feud, in particular, with B. Priestley, that we haven't really even heard speak yet in AEW, that you can go. So I can see this building to a second match and not necessarily ending here. And I would go with B. Priestley.
How do you feel overall that this show compares to past AEW pay-per-views in terms of overall interest and the buzz, especially coming off of, what are we at, 5 weeks of TV? 6?
Yeah. It's an interesting question because, you can ask whether or not the 6 weeks of TV have, we'll see how much television has helped them, because even without TV, they were certainly garnering a huge deal of interest. But we saw that maybe interest start to wane because how did All Out do compared to Double or Nothing? Do we have numbers?
I don't have them off the top of my head, but I believe All Out was a bit below Double or Nothing.
Right. So, you have to ask whether or not the 6 weeks of TV were enough to put them above All Out and maybe the waning, interest in the freshness of an AEW pay-per-view. And I think the answer would be yes. Those promos that Cody cut, the video that Jericho did, and overall, I think a greater familiarity with everybody for the entire roster is going to give them a lot more interest. The question is how much? How much more is a TNT audience going to give a boost to these AEW pay-per-views?
I feel that everyone will be happy. I think if you hit 100,000 buys, I think that's a number you're pretty happy with, and that was in the range of what they did for. Anyway, I can't remember the exact numbers for the last two, but in that ballpark, you would hope though that TNT has inflated that number to a certain degree. So I would be hoping for the top 120, the 125 to 150 range, I think would be reasonable. Are they I don't feel that they are going to grow their pay-per-view business to the extent the UFC did when Ultimate Fighter hit. That it was enormous right out of the gate for that first big show with the Chuck Liddell Randy Couture fight. And you saw the reality show paid dividends right there. I don't think we're going to see that where they get a monstrous number in comparison to whatever they did for All Out. But you would hope that TNT has grown it, obviously, from this exposure.
I think so too. 150, like a 50,000 gain based off of like that national TV exposure. I don't really know enough about numbers to determine what would be a success internally for them. But I mean, you think about the number of people that are watching weekly. If it's 800,000, about that much, 900,000. If that converted to 150,000, isn't that good?
I'm looking this up right now. So this was from The Observer back just after All Out. And Dave wrote, the UK was up both on, this is for All Out. The UK was up both on pay-per-view and on Fight TV. The US was down. Streaming on BR Live was about the same. Pay-per-view buys was down a lot. He says, I'm going to say it's going to be around 100,000 buys for All Out. Double or Nothing was around 120,000 buys. So that was back in September. I don't know if he got more of a finalized number after that, but we're looking at about a difference of like 20,000 buys higher for Double or Nothing. So,
gotcha.
If you did 120,000 for Double or Nothing without TV, I think you would be a little disappointed if you didn't hit that mark, considering that you're now in so many homes with TNT.
I agree. And, that number, I think especially is a good indicator of the future. And, whether or not the initial hype was solely responsible for that Double or Nothing buy rate, or if it was truly maybe the quality of the product and especially the TV show that'll pick up interest and get people to come back. So,
if this show were to do, let's say 140 to 150, what would you attribute as the biggest factors to that growth?
Television.
Strictly television. Do you feel that the Cody promo, for instance, do you think like that would have moved enough people to buy the show, which that promo was intended to do? Or are you just thinking it's the overall audience that is now more exposed to this, that the build to the pay-per-view has been strong enough for people that are new to this product that want to see this show?
I think the Cody promo is certainly maybe the most memorable thing coming out of that feud. So I would attribute a lot to the promo itself, but I would say overall it's probably the quality of that particular build in Chris Jericho versus Cody that I would pin to as being responsible, as well as I think interest in Omega versus Moxley, which is really a big marquee match. Those two I think are the main factors. But you have TV time, and it's certainly not just enough to like make a standard wrestling show. You have to make a really good wrestling show, and these guys have made a really good wrestling show over the past 6 weeks. So I would hope that would pay dividends in the form of like a higher buy rate than what they had before they had TV.
I really wish that Countdown show got to air on TNT.
I know. I wanted to ask Cody that actually on the call, but I never got a chance. But I'm really curious about their philosophy behind keeping a lot of that really good character development stuff on digital rather than putting a lot more of it on TV. I know Kevin Sullivan and Nick Mondo were involved with that particular Countdown. And a lot of other really, really, impressive, talented production people as well. So I hope to see more integration of all that.
I really enjoyed it. To me, it brought me back to when the UFC Countdown shows were can't miss. And they just, over time, they were doing so many of them that they just became very much boilerplate. And this one, they didn't keep it too long. It was 36 minutes. Wait, I watched this on the actual speed.
That's true respect from John.
I cannot give you a higher compliment than that, but I woke up on Thursday morning and I just sat on my couch and watched that thing, and I really loved it. They just focused on your 3 big matches. We don't people are buying it based on the money matches. You focus on 20% of the card for 80% of your buys. That's like the old theory, and that I just thought they did a great job of each chapter being different from the other. And you came out of that where I think you want to buy that show.
Do we even know if that show might be getting an airing on TNT?
I don't. I heard nothing of it. It's we're right. Talking on a Friday night. There's no time left.
Because didn't they do it for some of their prior pay-per-views?
They did it for All Out, and that preview show did very well on the Friday night. It didn't get publicized, but it did. God, I want to say it did like 388,000 viewers for a non-publicized hype show. So when I saw that Countdown show, I thought man, it just makes
better show.
It makes too much sense to just put it on a slot on TNT. So I was surprised, unless there was some airing tonight that they just didn't advertise. But I mean, I think we would have heard about that today if they were putting it on TNT.
Right. Yeah.
So, Wai and I will be back on Saturday night, everybody, right after AEW Full Gear live for Double Double, Ice Cap, and Espresso members, taking your phone calls, going through that entire show. It's going to be a party at my house, I understand.
Oh, you know it, John. Yeah. A bunch of people showing up.